Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking trial is getting heated. As jury selection continues, the judge overseeing the case called out attorney Mark Geragos, who is not officially on the rapper's defense team but is working with its jury consultant, for referring to the prosecution as a six-pack of white women.
So he has a podcast with the guy from TMZ, Harvey Levine, and on said podcast, he called the group of lawyers for the prosecution side, he said a six-pack of white women, and the judge was like, no, you got to watch your mouth.
Diddy's lawyers over here describing evidence like it's a pack of White Claw. Oh, we've got Vanilla Becky, Classic Karen, splash of Chardonnay Susan.
U.S. District Judge Arun Subramanian told Geragos on May 6 per NBC News, "I think this is ridiculous. I think referring to the prosecution in this case as a six-pack of white women is outrageous." Subramanian continued, "This would not be tolerated in any court from any lawyer anywhere across the nation."
So the prosecution is made up of all females, okay? And I guess Mark was joking about that, and somebody from the prosecution team heard about it, alerted the judge, and the judge pulled him into chambers. So Diddy Child Judge, I'll be watching two Angry Men podcasts, and you better not call prosecutors six-pack of white women.
However, Geragos, whose daughter Tenny Geragos is one of the lawyers on Combs' legal team, argued that he was simply making an observation. He added, "You've got a black man who's being prosecuted and the client feels like he's being targeted." Geragos made the controversial comment about the prosecution during the May 2nd episode of TMZ's Two Angry Men podcast, saying at the time, "Based on my 5th decade in the criminal justice system, race underscores everything in the criminal justice system."
Now, also, several celebrities were named today, although they haven't been accused of any wrongdoing. They might be mentioned during the course of the trial. Their names are Michael B. Jordan, Mike Myers, Kanye West, and his former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura.
Combs wants that video or videos excluded from trial. And for that, we turn to his motion in limine to exclude video footage of that March 5th, 2016 incident. Motion in limine is a pretrial motion that aims at preventing evidence from coming into trial or limiting it in some way. And it starts by saying, quote, "There is no longer any dispute that the CNN footage from March 5th, 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel offered by the government at 3 separate bail hearings is wholly inaccurate, having been altered, manipulated, sped up, and edited to be out of sequence."
Chloe, no jurors selected, but a pretty revealing start to the 8-week trial.
Lester, that's right. It was an illuminating first day of court. Combs entered the courtroom wearing a crew neck sweater and a white button-down shirt. He had some gray in his hair and in his goatee. And at one point, he told the judge that he needed to use the bathroom and that he was feeling a little bit nervous.
What happens when your own lawyer becomes your biggest liability? In a courtroom already boiling over trafficking charges, missing witnesses, and viral surveillance footage. A single offhand comment just lit the match, and it didn't come from the prosecution. It came from Diddy's own defense team. Just days before jury selection is finalized, celebrity attorney Mark Geragos, yes, that Mark Geragos, went on a podcast and referred to the all-female prosecution team as a six-pack of white women. It was supposed to be a snarky throwaway line. Instead, it exploded online, igniting outrage on Twitter, YouTube, and even inside the courtroom. The judge wasn't amused, social media wasn't forgiving, and Diddy, well, he's stuck on the sidelines watching his billion-dollar reputation, and maybe his freedom, ride on a comment he didn't even make. This isn't just a PR nightmare, it's a strategic collapse in real time. Think about it. A courtroom packed with potential jurors already on edge about viral videos and the disturbing claims of freak-offs, now getting a front-row seat to what looks like arrogance and tone-deaf elitism from the defense. And that's not even the whole story, because behind the scenes, things are unraveling faster than anyone expected.
Following the episode's release, Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic, one of the 6 women prosecuting Combs, voiced her concerns that Geragos' remarks could taint the jury pool, since potential jurors get their news from a variety of sources, including podcasts. She added in court May 6, "The danger of Mr. Geragos' statements infecting the jury pool is very serious. I think the admonishment here is warranted."
One of the prosecution's key witnesses has vanished. The judge brought in Ben Chu, yes, the same lawyer who helped Johnny Depp win against Amber Heard, to consult on jury selection. And Diddy's team is scrambling to spin a years-long scandal into a misunderstood lifestyle. But here's the big question. Is one viral soundbite about to tip the scales of the biggest celebrity trial of the decade? Because while everyone's watching Cassie, the tapes, and the missing accusers, It might be the six-pack slur that seals Diddy's fate. Stay tuned. What happens next could flip everything. It was supposed to be just another pre-trial media appearance, one of those casual podcast moments where lawyers puff their chests and drop clever one-liners. But Mark Geragos wasn't ready for what came next, because when he called the all-female prosecution team a six-pack of white women, he didn't just make headlines. He made history, for all the wrong reasons. The moment the clip hit the internet, it was chaos. The phrase was clipped, memed, reposted, and dissected from every angle. TikTok had their duets. Twitter, now X, trended Nander six-pack gate. Even legal blogs picked it up with headlines like, "Did Diddy's lawyer just derail his own case?" But the backlash didn't stop with social media. It marched straight into the federal courtroom. Judge Aaron Sobramanian didn't mince words. He blasted the comment as outrageous, warning both sides to stop the circus and focus on the facts. For a case already under a media microscope, this wasn't just embarrassing, it was dangerous. Because here's the thing most people forget: jurors are human. They may not be scrolling Twitter in the jury box, but they know the vibe. They've read the headlines. Some of them are women. And the idea that a high-powered celebrity defense team sees the prosecution as some disposable punchline.
In September, Combs was arrested and charged with racketeering, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. 6 months later, a superseding indictment added one additional count of sex trafficking and one of prostitution.
That's not just tone deaf. It's strategically reckless. Now imagine being Diddy, already facing life in prison, already battling a mountain of damning allegations, and watching your defense wobble before opening statements even begin. This wasn't a slip, it was a live grenade, and it put a spotlight not just on Geragos, but on the entire defense's attitude toward the very crimes they're trying to downplay. Because how do you defend against claims of abuse, coercion, and humiliation when your team's out here throwing shade at women on record? That's what Judge Sobraanian seemed to be hinting at. And legal analysts agree. In a trial, this high-profile optics matter. Tone matters. And now, a single sentence might be the chink in the armor the prosecution didn't even need. But Geragos isn't the only wild card in this courtroom. Behind every high-stakes celebrity trial is a legal team packed with power moves, and Diddy's lineup is no exception. From Mark Agnifilo, the high-profile defense strategist known for cutting plea deals for cult leaders, to Tenny Geragos and Brian Steele, fresh off the Young Thug RICO case, Diddy brought the heavy hitters. But even that wasn't enough to keep the courtroom under control, because then came the twist no one saw coming. Judge Aaron Sobraanian didn't just want lawyers, he wanted insight from a man who knows how to win over a jury in a celebrity circus. So he brought in none other than Ben Chew, the same attorney who led Johnny Depp to victory against Amber Heard in one of the most polarizing trials in recent memory. And according to inside sources, Diddy was livid.
The judge in Diddy's criminal trial is issuing a warning to Mark over his public comments about the case and vows he'll be watching and listening weekly to his podcast, Two Angry Men.
Ben Chew didn't take the stand, but his presence was enough to rattle Diddy's camp. He offered advice on how to manage juror psychology in high-profile trials, stressing the importance of perception, humility, and emotional control. Essentially, the complete opposite of how Geragos had just behaved. Insiders say Diddy flipped out behind closed doors. His team wasn't prepared for the judge to seek outside commentary, especially from a figure as symbolic as Ben Chew. And honestly, it sent a message. The court is watching every move, and so is the public. But it also exposed something deeper, a split in strategy. While Agnifilo and Chew leaned toward calm, persuasive, jury-friendly messaging, Geragos brought the swagger and aggression that made headlines, for all the wrong reasons. That clash of style could become a full-blown problem when opening statements start, and jurors begin to pick sides. Not just in the case, but in the tone of the courtroom. And with Diddy already denying a plea deal that might have saved him decades behind bars, this isn't the moment to gamble on ego. But there's another battlefield heating up fast, and it's the jury box itself. Jury selection in any criminal trial is tricky. In a trial involving a global celebrity, it's practically warfare. Now, imagine trying to find 12 impartial people who haven't already seen a viral video of you kicking your ex-girlfriend in a hotel hallway. That's what Diddy's team is up against. Over 160 potential jurors were brought in. Within the first 2 days, nearly 50 were dismissed outright. The rest were grilled with a battery of nearly 100 questions, ranging from "Where do you get your news?" to "What are your thoughts on Sean Combs?"
Judge Iran called Mark into chambers Tuesday on day 2 of jury selection for a tete-a-tete about the famed attorney referring to the federal prosecution team as a six-pack of white women during last week's episode of the podcast he co-hosts with TMZ's Harvey Levine.
Some admitted they didn't like him. Others weren't sure they could stay unbiased. By day 3, the pool was whittled down to just 35, and even that number felt shaky. Why? Because of the tape. That 2016 surveillance video showing Diddy knocking Cassie Ventura to the ground, kicking her, and dragging her across the floor has already aired on CNN and been watched millions of times. One potential juror said bluntly, "It was upsetting to watch, but I can still listen to the facts." She was dismissed anyway. And here's the real kicker. This isn't even a case about Cassie, at least not directly. She's not listed as the named victim in the charges. But that video is now legally admissible, and it's one of the prosecution's most powerful pieces of evidence. It's emotional, it's graphic, and it's burned into the minds of half the jurors before the trial even starts. Add in the fact that jurors admitted to recognizing names like Cassie, Usher, Justin Bieber, and even Kid Cudi, all rumored to be part of the larger narrative, and you've got a recipe for total bias overload. To make matters worse, the court had to pause jury selection ahead of the weekend, worried that some jurors might drop out before Monday. The judge is determined to seat a panel by May 12th, but every day brings new complications. It's clear Diddy's defense isn't just battling prosecutors. They're battling the internet, the public, and a courtroom full of people who've already seen more than enough. In a case this explosive, every witness counts. But just days before trial, one of the prosecution's most critical accusers, victim number 3, has mysteriously disappeared. That's not just inconvenient.
During the meeting, Mark argued the Supreme Court has effectively said defendants and their lawyers have a constitutional right to publicly defend themselves, and therefore the judge shouldn't gag attorneys connected to Diddy's offense.
That's catastrophic. According to federal prosecutors, this individual was added through a superseding indictment and was set to provide damning testimony about a 2013 Miami incident allegedly tied to Diddy's so-called freak-offs. These weren't just wild parties. Prosecutors say they were organized setups where women were drugged, coerced, and in some cases recorded without consent. Victim number 3 was expected to testify about one such event. But now, she's gone. And prosecutors admitted in court that they haven't been able to confirm her appearance. No emails, no contact, no witness. Was she intimidated, spooked, or did she just change her mind? Nobody knows for sure, but it's a haunting echo of other high-profile trials where key witnesses suddenly went silent. And in Diddy's case, it's even more troubling. He's accused of using power and fear to silence women for over 2 decades. So when someone suddenly vanishes, it feeds the worst kind of speculation. Defense attorneys naturally are seizing the moment. Their strategy hinges on casting doubt, on the timeline, on the accusers, and on the motives behind every lawsuit and testimony. And with victim number 3 off the radar, they have a golden opportunity to argue. If even the key witnesses don't show up, how strong can this case really be? But it's not just about that one testimony. Her absence forces the prosecution to lean harder on Cassie Ventura, the most high-profile accuser and the one with the tape, which means the pressure on Cassie to deliver is now immense.
By the way, the judge squarely asked Mark if he was advising Diddy in this case. His daughter Tenny and Mark, the lead attorney, and Mark, who are leading the defense, and he would only say he talks to Diddy with great frequency.
And the stakes? Higher than ever. Because while one witness may have disappeared, Cassie's about to take the stand. And what she brings to court, emotionally, visually, narratively, could change everything. For years, Cassie Ventura was known as Diddy's protege, his partner, his arm candy on red carpets. But in this courtroom, she's something entirely different, the prosecution's secret weapon. Even though she settled a civil lawsuit with Diddy in just 24 hours last year, the criminal case against him is still moving forward. And guess what? Cassie is expected to testify, voluntarily. Her testimony isn't just important, it's potentially devastating. At the center of it all is that infamous 2016 surveillance video. The grainy hotel footage shows Diddy shoving Cassie to the ground, kicking her while she's down, and dragging her by her hoodie across the hallway floor. That alone would be horrifying. But prosecutors claim it's just the tip of the iceberg. They say Cassie isn't just a victim of abuse, she's the blueprint. According to court documents, Diddy allegedly used her to orchestrate and normalize his so-called freak-offs, lavish, drug-fueled parties that prosecutors claim were anything but consensual. They allege he coached her on what to do, how to perform, and how to coerce other women into joining these disturbing scenes. We're talking about allegations of forced drug use, staged encounters with hired workers, and even hidden cameras. Evidence that prosecutors say was used as leverage to keep victims silent. They claim Diddy watched, directed, recorded. Cassie's role in all of this is unique. She was close enough to see everything, victimized enough to validate the broader pattern, and famous enough that her words can't be dismissed as background noise. But Diddy's legal team is ready to push back. Hard. Their defense strategy?
Anyway, the judge didn't disagree with Mark's argument, but still reminded him certain comments are so outrageous they wouldn't be tolerated. For instance, a six-pack of white women.
Frame the video as one ugly moment in a long, messy, but mutually toxic relationship. They're expected to paint Cassie as unstable, violent, and complicit. Anything to blur the lines and create reasonable doubt. Still, the jury saw the video, they know what they saw, and now, with victim number 3 missing, Cassie becomes the face of the case. Whether that's enough to convict or just fuel more doubt will depend on one thing: how the jury reads her story. It wasn't in a courtroom, it wasn't under oath, and yet, it might be the most defining moment of this entire trial. When Mark Geragos, a seasoned, high-profile defense attorney, referred to the all-female prosecution team as a six-pack of white women during a podcast, he wasn't just being glib. He may have unintentionally handed the prosecution a gift they didn't even have to ask for. Jury bias against the defense. Now, here's why that line hits differently in this trial. Diddy isn't on trial for some white-collar offense or music contract dispute. He's being accused of coercing and exploiting women emotionally, physically, and in a case so deeply wrapped in power dynamics, gender, and abuse, dismissing the prosecution with a frat boy soundbite doesn't just feel off, it feels strategic, even hostile. Judge Subramanian called it out instantly. He condemned the comment as outrageous and made it clear that he's keeping an eye on both legal teams for any signs of misconduct inside or outside the courtroom. But the damage may already be done. Because remember, even an anonymous jury isn't sealed off from the world. They read between the lines, they absorb the tone, and some are probably wondering, if that's how Diddy's team talks about women in public.
The judge essentially said if Mark pulls a stunt like that again, he could be cited for contempt. Bottom line, Judge Iran warned Mark about crossing the line on Two Angry Men, saying, "I'm going to be watching and I'm going to be listening, all right? You have one more listener for your podcast."
What are they like behind closed doors? Worse still, it may play into the prosecution's narrative that Diddy surrounds himself with enablers, people who downplay abuse, normalize misconduct, or worse, mock the ones calling it out. And in a trial where everything is about perception, that one moment of bravado might be the crack that lets a flood of doubt pour in. Even with missing witnesses, even with questions about Cassie's settlement, even with high-powered lawyers and money to burn, tone matters, respect matters. And in the eyes of a jury, arrogance has a price. So here we are. The jury is nearly finalized, the courtroom is tense, and Diddy, once the untouchable mogul who dominated hip-hop fashion and fame, is now a man facing a lifetime behind bars. He's already made his move. He rejected a plea deal. That means no shortcuts, no reduced sentence, no escape hatch. Diddy is putting his fate in the hands of 12 strangers, in a trial expected to run 8 weeks, packed with explosive evidence, celebrity cameos, and grueling testimonies. And yet, one of the most damaging moments didn't come from the evidence table. It came from a microphone on a podcast. Mark Geragos' six-pack of white women comment wasn't just inappropriate. It revealed a kind of smug detachment, a courtroom confidence that, in this moment, feels tone-deaf at best and devastating at worst. In a trial about abuse, power, and control, reducing a team of prosecutors to a nickname, that's not just disrespect, it's self-sabotage. Meanwhile, the prosecution is far from perfect. They've lost contact with a key witness. They're leaning heavily on Cassie's story, and the court of public opinion is divided, torn between long-standing loyalty to Diddy's legacy and the horrifying details that just keep piling up. But this isn't about popularity anymore. It's about what 12 jurors believe. Do they believe the defense? That Diddy lived a consensual, albeit wild lifestyle? That his past relationships were messy but mutual? That the accusations are exaggerated, opportunistic, or flat-out false? Or do they believe the stories, backed by video, bruises, and years of whispers finally made public, that power corrupted, and the man once called a king of culture is now just another abuser hiding behind wealth and fame? Either way, opening statements begin May 12th. The cameras are rolling, the public is watching, and Diddy's entire empire now hangs on how well his team plays this final high-stakes hand. So, let me ask you this. Did Mark Geragos just cost Diddy everything? Or is this just the beginning of a defense that's crazier, riskier, and maybe smarter than anyone realizes? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this trial, it's about to get wild.